Hello and welcome back to Sibos Spotlight Sessions, a series of individual, passionate presentations with top speakers and experts creatively tackling topical industry issues, stimulating debate and facilitating the exchange of great ideas. My name's Oisín Lunny. I'm an event MC, a journalist and the host of the Siemens Advanta and Harman Audio Talks podcast. It's great to see you. And today we're going to be talking about better banking, better lives, it being the last day of Sibos Spotlight sessions under the umbrella of Banking for Humanity, which is really a wonderful thing that Sibos is doing. So most banks have programs in place to ensure that they have a positive impact on the local communities in which they operate. But increasingly, banks are turning their attention to some of the world's most urgent problems, such as climate change, extreme poverty, financial exclusion and gender equality. So we're going to hear from a series of thought leaders who are going to explore these different pillars of what it means to be a bank in 2020 and beyond, and really how banking can play a role in making this planet a better place to live for everybody. So I'm thrilled to welcome to the stage the Global Head of Sustainable Finance for Financial Institutions Coverage at BNP Paribas. Ladies and gents, please welcome to the stage Alexandra Basirov.
Better banking, better lives. What does it mean? And can it be true? My son asked a very similar question. Mum, how can you work in a bank and help the environment? Hello, I'm Alexandra Basirov, Global Head of Sustainable Finance for Financial Institutions Coverage at BNP Paribas. I've been doing this job for 2 years, which in itself is a demonstration of how the financial industry is changing to build better lives, putting more resources to drive change to help build a more inclusive and sustainable economy. The world is changing, and we're currently living through the worst health crises in a generation. Adapting to the world's complex challenges is at the forefront of people's minds around the globe. Climate change, income inequality, societal injustice are clear and present danger to the world as we know it. Today, I'm going to talk about how better banking can make better lives, focusing on how banks are helping to mitigate climate change and meet the Paris Agreement goals through sustainable business, because without a healthy planet, we will not have healthy lives, and the most vulnerable populations will be impacted the most. Global socio-economic impacts could be substantial. I myself was brought up in Australia on a remote sheep farm, knowing firsthand what it's like to be dependent on rainfall for domestic use and what a drought really means. And witnessing the devastating impact wildfires can bring to both humanity and livelihoods. I'm going to show you a photo. No, this is not California in 2020, but me in 1982, where I lived. Yes, bushfires are common, but as average temperatures rises, acute hazards such as these fires, heat waves, and floods grow in frequency and severity, and chronic hazards such as drought and rising sea levels intensify, bringing devastating consequences to all of us. So it may have been my childhood that led me to the position I'm in now, after working for 20 years in the capital markets. But no, it was my eldest son, hindered in his day-to-day activities due to his acute asthma. I investigated the causes and effects of asthma in young children and discovered and learnt all about the negative implications of air pollution. I went on a mission to educate people about air pollution and the dangers of it. We improved our advertising strategy in the UK by providing clean air zones in Marylebone Station, one of the most polluted areas in London, And before too long, I took on this role where I could apply my banking knowledge, working with colleagues at BNP Paribas and across the industry to accelerate the way finance can contribute to make a more sustainable world. After all, banks have a critical role to play. Without any doubt, I was fortunate to be in a bank that had sustainable finance at the core of its business strategy. So, what are we doing practically? Well, we know three things. One, we can't win in a world that loses. Two, we have to reduce carbon by 50% by 2030 to help meet the Paris Agreement goals and hit net zero by 2050. And three, we also have the Sustainable Development Goals to meet by 2030. Yes, that's just 10 years to make the changes we need to try and ensure a stable future. So, we have signed up to the Principles of Responsible Banking along with over 185 banks. The key principles provide a framework for a sustainable banking system and help the industry to demonstrate how to make a positive contribution to society, using the Sustainable Development Goals and the Paris Agreement as guiding principles. This is a way for us to better understand what the impact is on society through our lending and investment activities. It's not perfect now, but the industry is working with many coalitions to bring a greater understanding of the carbon intensity of our portfolios and aligning them towards the goals of the Paris Agreement. Only recently, a number of banks, known as the Katowice banks, including BNP Paribas, released a report outlining an approach to measure the alignment of some lending portfolios with climate scenarios. It's called the Paris Alignment Capital Transitional Assessment, PACTA. And it's an open source tool which can be applied by any interested bank. We also have sector policies to accelerate our support of the energy transition. These prevent us from lending to such businesses such as those involved in shale and tar sands, because we know the extraction and production of oil and gas from shale and oil from the tar sands emit high levels of greenhouse gases. We also have not financed a single new coal-fired plant project anywhere in the world since 2017. And last year, we stepped up our coal policy to stop financing and to reduce to nil the outstanding loans to companies related to thermal coal by 2030 in the EU and in OECD countries. We're also managing our risks associated with climate change, be it physical risks or transitional risks, reporting under the TCFD, that's the Task Force for Climate-Related Financial Disclosures, and educating and training our staff so they understand the implications of a changing world. And we're also working on preserving our biodiversity. But we ultimately recognize we're a mirror of the economy, and knowing that we need to move from a high carbon economy to one of zero carbon, we need to help finance and accelerate this transition and build back better. Reaching net zero may seem like a mission impossible, but it's not. According to the Energy Transitions Commission, it's technically and economically possible. So, just as Einstein said, in the middle of every difficulty lies an opportunity. We have this incredible opportunity to actively support our clients and help them transition to a cleaner and greener future by innovating new financial instruments such as transition bonds, sustainability-linked loans, sustainability-linked bonds, just what we did for Chanel this week, and issuing green bonds to support clean investments. We are also increasing the public and private cooperation to develop a form of blended finance, which also plays a critical role, especially in developing countries. Banks can also help finance new companies and their technologies, such as hydrogen. As we know, large portions of some sector emissions will require the use of new technologies and, naturally, continue to finance the renewable energy industry. Ultimately, we need to reallocate capital from the old to the new economy. As David Attenborough would say, we have the option to invest deeper into the climate crises or in the solutions and practices that could take us out of it. And if we want better lives, it's obvious what we need to do. But we do need further clarity, like what does net zero mean? What do these feasible sectorial pathways look like? What will the overall shape of a future zero carbon economy look like? And the technologies and the costs and the likelihoods and the uncertainties, so we can really assess the risks when we go out and finance these technologies. And likewise, the tools to help us measure the impact we're having and help speed up the transition and use more data, science, and maybe climate artificial intelligence. But what's key is data that is going to be reliable, consistent, and comparable, so disclosures are absolutely important. But we know we can't do this alone. We need collective action. Banks can play their role, but we need all actors in society, from individuals to regulators, governments, public policymakers, to create the right policy and investment environment, and also innovators, the energy producers at large, and you as buyers of goods and services, to seek those zero-emission options and to ask where your pension fund is invested, and are you comfortable with where it's invested? We must continue to close the gap between commitment and action. Now is the time to act. And the speed of our action is critical, as we do not have long. COVID-19 has revealed our ability to respond quickly to an existential threat. It has also laid down a clear path to deal with a larger threat, a changing climate. It has presented a rare opportunity for truly transformational change and a chance to genuinely build back better for better lives. Somewhere between 12 and 20 trillion are going to be allocated to recovery packages around the world in the next 3 to 18 months. This has never happened before. The banking industry has the ability to play a major role in creating an economy that's more respectful of the environment and more inclusive by choosing how to target its financing and designing investment solutions and products that reconcile positive impact and financial performance. It is above all by working with public authorities, NGOs, businesses, and civil society that we will be able to undertake the necessary transition to a more responsive growth. At BNP Paribas, we thrive to make finance a means to transform society for the better. So better banking certainly can lead to better lives. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alexandra, for that very moving and personal story. There's examples of your son and the air in Marylebone Station, and really how banks have a critical role to play in making the world more sustainable. Wonderful stuff that you're doing over there at BNP Paribas. And my key takeaway there was, well, there's two. One is that great quote from Einstein, in the middle of every difficulty lies opportunity. And quote number two, we can't win in a world that loses. Okay, it's time to get our skates on. Every industry, whoever is watching, we're all part of this solution. Okay, we're going to move forward and meet a speaker that I'm a huge fan of. He speaks wonderfully about financial inclusion, its power and its necessity. So it's a privilege to introduce to the Sibos Spotlight stage the CVP of Worldwide Financial Services at Microsoft. Please welcome Bill Borden.
Hi, I'm Bill Borden, and I lead Microsoft's worldwide financial services industry. Like never before, our world is changing, and we are facing some of the biggest challenges of our time: poverty, food and water security, ongoing wars and conflicts, social inequality, climate change, and of course, now with the COVID-19 pandemic. The good news is that today's global focus on tech intensity and the use of advanced technologies have enormous potential to help solve these critical issues. Data-driven innovations are being used to improve agricultural yield sustainability, enable precision conservation, and improve disaster response. And we've all recently witnessed the power of data, AI, and cloud technology in action to mobilize our business communities and help our first responders and researchers in the fight against COVID-19. Let me show you some examples of how amazing advances in AI technologies can have an incredible impact on how we address humanitarian issues.
Human rights situation often deteriorate very quickly, and the faster we can get the information and we can react to the situation, it can be a real game changer.
New technologies are advancing so rapidly, and technology companies can advise us on how best to use those technologies to protect and promote human rights.
Our objective is automatic damage mapping, because after the disaster, the government needs the damage map to carry out the effective rescue. If we can save the time to grasp the ground damage information, we are able to save a lot of life and facilities.
In a new partnership with the World Bank, United Nations, and tech industry partners, we'll be better able to predict when and where famine will occur.
Operation Smile's vision really sinks in with what I feel is a fundamental human right.
What the volunteers do for the children may seem like a small thing, but they're able to change the lives of the families forever.
We're creating a chatbot-based experience for refugees coming out of the Syria conflict. The purpose is to have displaced youth find a way to discover and access learning materials. You can engage directly with the course content.
It's just the beginning of the impact that we hope to have with the tools at our disposal.
Issues and events like these also remind us just how interconnected we all are in the world and the need to work together as a global community. So today here at Sibos, together as a worldwide financial services community, I'd like to use my talk with you as a kickoff to a discussion I hope you expand upon during your interactions at Sibos, and that you take back to your organizations to continue the dialogue and brainstorming. The question I submit is the following. From where we sit in financial services, how can we further accelerate the use of these technologies to help empower us to do our part to create a better world? As a lead into this spotlight session with Swift's help, we polled Sibos's registrants on the areas where you thought technology could have the biggest impact when it comes to diversity, inclusion, and sustainability. For today's discussion, I'll focus on 3 key opportunities for impact. The first is around equity and inclusion. Technologies like AI and advanced analytics, when used responsibly and in the right way, can have enormous impact on servicing our diverse population. A key area relates to accessibility. There are currently 1 billion people living with disabilities globally, and yet according to the World Health Organization, only 1 in 10 people with disabilities has access to assistive technologies and products. There are so many new smart tech developments that can open up a world of opportunities to create intelligent experiences for people with disabilities. This includes advances in computer vision, speech recognition, natural language understanding, screen reading, and narration. You could integrate screen reading and narration capabilities into your banking products for the vision impaired, and speech-to-text capabilities for those with hearing impairments. Today's latest technology advancements also provide more opportunities for personalization. For example, banks can employ multilingual cognitive tools that localize real-time to personalized product or service offerings. Another key area is fairness. If we are vigilant and intentional about creating inclusive technologies, then tech will level the playing field. Access is key. AI advancements can also help you look across and analyze data consistently, helping diminish or eliminate inaccuracies or personal errors or opinions in financial decisions like lending. And one final point I'd like to challenge all of us to think more about as a community is social justice. How can we create new opportunities to expand access to much needed capital for minority-owned small and medium-sized businesses? This is something I'm personally involved in right now, exploring what technology modernization needs to take place to best support community development banks and social equity efforts. The next opportunity for impact around the world is poverty and stability. Technology innovations are giving us so many new opportunities to partner with nonprofits to build data-driven digital financial tools that can empower vulnerable communities and women to create financial stability. AI and machine learning can also help us play a role in tackling extreme poverty. The Famine Action Mechanism is a great example of this that was shown in the video. It's a partnership with the World Bank, the United Nations, and tech industry partners using these technologies to be better able to predict when and where future famines will occur, allowing organizations to respond earlier and more effectively and make financing more predictable and strategic. This can potentially help save more lives. The third area of impact I wanted to talk about relates to the environment. In many ways, our current pandemic has been an environmental wake-up call. Socially responsible investing aligned to ESG, environmental, social, and governance assets, is on the rise, and it is presenting new challenges and opportunities for financial institutions that technology can help support. Technology innovations will be able to help provide real-time, transparent data that can be used to evaluate opportunities and investments from an ESG perspective. They can help corporate banks recalibrate loan portfolios to differentiate green assets from brown. And they can help retail banks create new tools for consumers to manage their own carbon footprint and to support societal impact. So now when it comes to being impactful, how do we ensure success? Delivering meaningful innovation is one of Microsoft's core tenets, and each of the topics I just covered are important priorities. As we think about the opportunities to build better banking solutions, I wanted to share some of our own thinking, learnings, and best practices to help ensure positive outcomes. The first is to need to put responsible AI principles into practice. The most important piece of implementing AI is to ensure that you are applying it responsibly. It can either introduce unnecessary bias or truly represent the needs of people everywhere. In financial services, responsible AI principles can help build confidence and trust from your AI applications within your organizations, with your customers, and with regulators. In their absence, it will be harder to correct unintentional biases later and gain trust. One of the things that Microsoft has launched to help in this area is an offering on GitHub called Fair Learn, which helps people assess if there are areas of their AI systems that may not be fair to all people. When our partner EY put Fair Learn to the test with real mortgage adjudication data, including transactions, payment histories, and other unstructured and semi-structured data, it improved the fairness of loan decisions dramatically, reducing the disparity between men and women from 7% to less than 5%. The second best practice is also the use of inclusion design principles. Inclusive design is a methodology born out of digital environments that enables and draws from a full range of human diversity. Most importantly, this means including and learning from people with a range of perspectives. Our inclusive design principles include recognize exclusion, learn from diversity, and solve for one, extend to many. For example, designing for people with permanent disabilities actually results in designs that benefit people universally. Benefits of technology that's designed through inclusive practices pays off in many ways, including delivering increased access, reduced friction, and more emotional context to the greatest number of people. The last point I want to emphasize is the importance of cultivating a diverse technology team. Last year, the World Economic Forum compiled several studies that provide further evidence that diversity sparks innovation. Businesses with more diverse management teams have higher revenues. A C-suite with more women is likely to produce more profitability. When people with different backgrounds and experiences collaborate, unique ideas can flourish. What's discussed less and needs to be shared more is the importance of increasing diversity with your tech teams. If you want to build technology solutions that are inclusive of everyone, diverse teams also help avoid bias and develop features that meet the needs of more people. Going back to Muhammad Yunus's quote in the video, while technology is important, it's what we do with it that truly matters. In our pre-session poll, we also asked you what issues you think the financial services industry could do better to help solve. These are all important issues where we can put technology to work for us to help us do our part to create a better world. At Microsoft, everything we do is centered around our mission to empower everyone on the planet to achieve more. AI is about amplifying human ingenuity through intelligent technology that will reason with, understand, and interact with people. And together with people, help us solve some of society's most fundamental challenges. As I look at the world and at the financial services industry, in spite of all of our challenges, I remain optimistic. We are just scratching the surface of technology's potential to make a positive impact. It's one of the reasons I came from the banking industry to Microsoft. The opportunity that meaningful innovation presents in financial services and to the customers we all serve. I hope this talk has set some ideas in motion for you. And again, that you continue the dialogue and the brainstorming. And I'm excited to work together to better empower individuals within our community to make a bigger impact and create more inclusive, accessible, and responsible banking experiences that will enrich the lives of people all around the world. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bill. And thank you to all of the Sibos delegates who took part in that poll there and gave Bill the data to illustrate his points. One of the key takeaways for me was this idea of meaningful innovation, and he shared some great examples there. Putting responsible AI into practice, practicing inclusive design, and also promoting diversity in tech. And I will, and I suspect many other technology people will be checking out FairLearn on GitHub. So thank you for that example, Bill. Yes, I love the idea of AI amplifying human ingenuity. Okay, we're going to move on with a brilliant speaker who is the Global Head of Human Resources at BNY Mellon, and she speaks very powerfully about diversity. You are in for a treat, and I hope you pay attention to what she has to say. Please welcome to the stage, Jolyn Anderson.
Hi, I'm Jolyn Anderson, and I'm the Global Head of Human Resources for BNY Mellon. Today, I'm going to be talking about driving change and how we work to establish a culture of equity. The central theme of this year's Sibos conference is driving the evolution of smart finance. It's centered around several core themes, including how we can drive banking for humanity. However, in order to achieve this goal, it's important that we're first looking within our own organizations to ensure that we've established the infrastructure and the talent that is going to indeed define the future of finance. In recent months, we've seen unprecedented change across the globe. As we continue to manage the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic, social justice protests in the streets are exposing misconceptions of risk and opportunity in the workplace and boardroom. Systematic racial bias has taken countless lives, and also left a long list of opportunity related to misallocated capital, lost talent, overlooked markets, and untapped innovation. Many financial services organizations have made commitments in recent months to combat racism, fight climate change, and support social justice initiatives. But to migrate from individual statements and commitments to programs with broader systematic change, we must all adhere to a new standard for the long haul. These standards must have equality at the core. On this slide, I show a few sobering facts. While we've made some progress, research tells us that we have much work to do. We're almost 100 years away from resolving the gender pay gap. We've been unable to unlock more than $1 billion of revenue by increasing full participation in the financial sector. The racial wealth gap continues to grow. And in the US, white families earn 10 times more than Black families. There are 1.3 billion people across the world that live with a disability, and yet they are 2 times more likely to be unemployed. These disparities in economic opportunity limit access to, among other things, safe housing, quality healthcare, education, stable employment, and effective protection by the justice system. We also polled Sibos attendees, many of whom said that diversity, inclusion, and equality is critical for business success. And yet, a majority equally said that we've not made enough progress in the space. Why? Banks and other financial services firms claim to agree with the underlying premise that diverse and inclusive organizations make companies better. But despite the known benefits, these challenges continue to be ever present. And yet the stakes remain high that we as an industry continue to press for progress. At BNY Mellon, we've made the commitment to double down on our diversity and inclusion efforts. Today, I hope to share ways in which organizations and individuals can join us in this effort by reinforcing the importance and value of this work and presenting a model for achieving equity and belonging within your firm. First, let's start with a common language. If I were to ask all of you how you define diversity, I'd probably hear a lot of diverse answers. Our experiences, our exposure, our observations, it all influences definition. But diversity is our difference. It's all of the things that enable us to make a unique contribution. It's our backgrounds, our experiences, who we are as individuals. Inclusion is in creating an environment in which those differences are celebrated and valued. Similar to the image of the 2 salads, diversity is the mix, inclusion is making the mix work to create something new and better than the individual parts. I also think it's important to look at equity. There's been a lot of discussion on the difference between equity and equality. What is equality? Is it treating everyone the same? Is that accurate? How do we think about the historical impact and starting point and make sure that we're acknowledging that? This is why equity is what we really should strive for. Equity aims to achieve fairness, providing people with the resources and opportunities they need given history and circumstances. Striving for equity can be the anchor to help create a more diverse and inclusive organization. And what's the reward for striving for a culture that embraces equity? Well, diversity forms the very fabric of our interconnected world. It's shaped and accelerated by globalization. It powers a competitive business advantage, and studies show it enables companies to better attract top talent, and is a business imperative that drives performance. It really enables individuals to reach their full potential. The financial services sector is uniquely positioned to improve equity, and it can enable more people to be included in the economy and have a chance at building generational wealth. Workplace diversity also boosts a company's reputation and employer brand, and companies with above average diversity report 45% more total revenue generated from new products and services. Investors, of course, understand that value, diversity, and inclusion leads to better business results, financial returns, and better risk management. But there's also a human side of this that we need to consider. Belonging is equally important. It's a fundamental need. It's a feeling that can be enforced by a culture that we purposely create. I think it's our duty and our obligation to be deeply engaged in helping our company, our leaders, our employees create organizations where everyone feels like they belong and want to be part of reflecting those values in the communities in which we live and work. As an individual and a leader, I've seen the power that belonging can inspire. from seeing the direct impact on the lives of individuals who've benefited from better childcare or leave policies or extension of mental health benefits. There's a particular example that stands out in my mind. A few years ago, we created transgender guidelines. They were a tool for managers and employees to help define terms and help our people educate themselves and leverage a common language to have conversations about these topics. When we rolled it out, we heard from a number of transgendered and transitioning employees about how this really made them feel welcome at BNY Mellon. And one employee shared how this handbook was indeed life-saving because he'd actually been considering taking his own life. The handbook for him sent a clear message to this individual that we want you here. We value you for who you are, and we're going to support you to reach your full potential. More recently, we've launched a series of courageous inclusion conversations to encourage our employees to create space to have discussions about their experiences, share their backgrounds, acknowledge the truth and the hurt that racism and discrimination can create. To see our teams come together and support and learn from one another, it was really inspiring. And it's those connections that will enable individual and industry actions and advocacy to help us all increase access to opportunity, improve individual well-being, and promote a more equitable and productive society. So, how do we move forward? Well, there are 3 actions organizations can take to help build long-term equity. The first is thinking about building awareness around diversity and inclusion. What's your company's business case for the strategy? Are you clear on why it's critical and a business imperative? Have you communicated that to employees? Everyone must understand the why and the how to execute on the strategy. And it also needs to start with you, the individual. Here's a small exercise to think about and talk about how we experience differences. Do you live a diverse life? Are you surrounded by people who are different than you? Think about your trusted 5. The goal is to see how many people are like you or not. Think about the influence this may have on how you make decisions. For example, are you only hiring people who are like you? You have to build awareness and diversify where you source your information. Be an accomplice and an active ally for those who aren't like you. We also need to think about how we embed an approach to establishing diversity, equity, and inclusion. It has to be systematically addressed. Structural barriers to inclusion stem from legacies of exclusion and exist at every stage of the employee lifecycle, from hiring to growing and retaining employees. Systematic problems ultimately demand systematic solutions. To think that there might be a simple solution to these barriers, it's appealing, but unfortunately, there's no quick fix for stereotypes or bias or the organizational processes where these patterns have long been codified. To cultivate a diverse and inclusive company, decision makers must evaluate how people-related decisions are made across the employee experience. We must revisit the assumptions about what talent looks like, where it may exist, and what changes to formal policies, practices, or subtle organizational norms that benefit some people to the detriment of others. As we think about systematic interventions, we also need to think about the role that leaders play. And managing inclusion as a real competency. Fortunately, it is a competency. It can be learned. It can be broken into a set of teachable behaviors, and you can get better at it with time and practice. It's a mindset and an intentionality that people should bring to their everyday experiences. Yes, it is human nature to make snap judgments, to make sense of our world. Biases will creep in, whether they're conscious or not. But leaders who can really tap into conscious behavior and actively bring in the broadest range of voices will help companies win. Inclusive leaders aren't necessarily born, they're made. And we can help by providing resources to improve inclusion skills. One of the most important inclusion skills is empathy. It's the ability to embrace and understand and appreciate the emotions and experiences of another person. Empathy can be learned and is demonstrated by listening and being curious about people from different walks of life. Make an effort to read, research, watch their stories. Don't be afraid to ask questions or have a conversation to allow the other person to feel heard and seen. And finally, the most important piece is that accountability must set the tone. You have to think about how you're setting enterprise D&I goals with specific targets to improve representation, both in the near and long term. Tie D&I goal performance to leaders' variable compensation to drive ownership and accountability. Look at your HR systems and infrastructure. Are the talent processes and practices free from bias? Establish a D&I learning program. Provide managers and employees with foundational skills to practice inclusion. And engage all employees with D&I action goals. It's also finally critical that you know your data. Support voluntary self-identification, leverage technologies and analytical tools, and make evidence-based decisions. So, in closing, let's recap. We've quantified some of the untapped opportunities, the vast unrealized value that we leave on the table in terms of economic growth, corporate financial performance, market share, competition for talent. When we're not intentionally inclusive, we define terms so that we can have a common language to have a conversation. It's important that we're able to connect and find common ground. When we do, we can engage more people in caring about the change. And when people care, that they make a difference and take action. We explored the business imperative as well as the social imperative. It's clear in research and when we listen to our people and our employees, there's a strong market and moral case for building a culture of equity. And we identified ways in which organizations can create awareness, embed diversity and inclusion, and drive accountability for positive change. At BNY Mellon, we believe strength in diversity. Our differences make us stronger. We practice it. We seek out different perspectives across different backgrounds, experiences, and expertise that help us identify blind spots and unlock new value. This commitment's not only woven into our company's culture and to each of us as individuals, it's critical to our ability to serve clients and grow our business. And it's backed with actions with specific targets and creating policies that embed diversity and inclusion in our operating model. Banks and financial institutions are uniquely positioned to catalyze action around systematic inequalities. There's no place in this movement for being passive at the corporate level or bystanders at the individual level. So the question I ask you is, what will you do? As industry leaders, you have the power and the influence to build a culture of equity that can create better lives. Be an active ally, call out biases, be intentionally inclusive. The change starts with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jolyn. That was absolutely brilliant. Very inspiring stuff there. I cannot believe we are 100 years away from unlocking the gender pay gap. That's just disgraceful, but I hope maybe we can speed that up. Diversity is a superpower, absolutely. And companies with above average diversity report 45% more total revenue generated from new products and services. Oh my goodness, with that 45%. Where does your business get 45% increase in anything? From diversity. That's the answer from Jolyn. There you have it. So when you look at your organization and mirror, do you see diversion, inclusion, equality, and equity, based on both the market and the moral case? And, leaders, she asked the question there very bluntly and bravely and, stand in front of the mirror and ask, what will you do? Because the change starts with you. Okay, so welcome if you're going to get on board with this, and I look forward to seeing Jolyn's future presentations about progress that's been made in banking and financial services. Okay, so we're going to move swiftly on and meet the General Manager of Group Financial Wellbeing at the Commonwealth Bank of Australia. Now, I introduced a colleague of his at Sibos Spotlight last year in London, and I thought it was a great example of actually looking at customers through the lens of empathy and looking at what can actually help them in their lives. And I've so much admiration for this company. I love what they're doing. And this is, for me, one of the gold standards in new compassionate banking. And, he's going to tell you all about the value it brings to the business and the reasons why it's so important to adopt this approach. So, ladies and gentlemen, for our final speaker of Sibos Spotlight Day 4, our final day, sadly, please welcome to the stage Mohammed Khalil from the Commonwealth Bank of Australia.
Thank you to Sibos and its organizers for inviting me to speak today. My name is Mohammed Khalil, and I'm the General Manager for Financial Wellbeing at the Commonwealth Bank of Australia. In the next few minutes, I hope to show you why financial wellbeing is important, how to think about it differently, and what can be accomplished when you do. Like many banks, we recognize our business is fundamentally tied to our customer success. In fact, this belief is at the core of every retail bank promise today. As you can clearly see, banks appreciate their role in supporting the micro and macro economies of the people they serve. And at CBA, this principle of shared prosperity underpins our group purpose: to improve the financial well-being of our customers and communities. A promise whose importance is even more relevant today in the midst of a public health crisis. But every bank has struggled with this mission. Our industry is successful at driving greater efficiency, resilience, and quality. With better data automations, operations, digitization, and personalization, we're dramatically improving products, features, and services. This also drives reduced cost and better profits. But this success is not translating into impact for customers. Even in the most developed economies, there is a growing population of people struggling with their financial health. In every economy, a third or more of customers consistently spend more than they earn. A third or more of customers could not access $500 of savings or credit in an emergency. And 3/4 or more of customers are not adequately prepared for retirement. And this is prior to the current crisis. So when customers read about improving bank profits while also seeing more people struggle with everyday expenses, repaying debt, retiring comfortably, or find themselves facing these challenges too, they ask 3 questions. Are you being authentic and genuine about your purpose? Do you have an empathetic and human understanding of my needs, challenges, and limitations? And are you capable of consistently delivering solutions that effectively meet those needs? These questions of authenticity, empathy, and competence are the core elements of trustworthiness, as based on decades of research. Unfortunately, the answer is often a clear dissonance between the bank's promise and the customer outcomes, undermining their faith and loyalty in the relationship. So how can we do better? Over the past 3 years, I've had the privilege of establishing a multidisciplinary team of digital, data, and behavioral experts whose mission is to accelerate our group's purpose. Commonwealth Bank has over 40,000 passionate people who serve and advance our customers' well-being every day. But by applying our unique skill sets in a disciplined approach, we have accelerated innovative capabilities and solutions for our customers and communities. We have built world-first measures of financial well-being. We've established partnerships with world-leading experts to design innovative solutions at scale. We have delivered multiple digital experiences that have quickly become the most used features in our global award-winning app. And we have delivered hundreds of millions of dollars in measurable impact to our customers in the group. But the key to that impact is not what, but how we did this. We followed 3 key principles. First, we defined and measured our promise. Profit and NPS have clear visibility from the front line to the board. What if we set out to do the same for financial well-being? How would our insights, decisions, and performance change? Second, we determined the need to focus on improving human decision-making. Fortunately, this is also known as behavioral science, emphasis on the science. As with any science, it is a discipline with far more questions than answers. There is no complete theory of human behavior to explain how or why our customers behave the way they do. But by bringing the discipline of the scientific method to banking, we moved from intuition to evidence-based innovation. Third, we wanted to truly accelerate our ability to deliver the customer promise at scale. This meant creative disruption and deep innovation wherever we found misalignments between existing business models and customer outcomes. We decided to be measured, disciplined, and innovative. Let's start with measurement. You cannot measure what you cannot define. So what is financial well-being? Surprisingly, despite being at the core of every bank promise, there was no clear, consistent definition. So we decided to build a definition applicable to any customer in any context at any point in their life. Working with the Melbourne Institute for Applied Economic and Social Research, we conducted rigorous scientific analysis that allowed us to deeply understand financial health and its core elements, as listed on this page. We also worked to map these technical definitions to language that would resonate with our colleagues and customers. Our DAYS framework allows anyone inside or outside the organization to effectively speak to financial well-being. And finally, the science led us to 2 related but distinct measures of well-being. One that evaluates how customers perceive their well-being via a 5-question survey, and the other that evaluates how customers are actually doing with their well-being by looking at specific bank data. And each of these measures translates into a simple 100-point score. The elegant simplicity of our DAYS framework and the scores are underpinned by rigorous scientific and statistical analysis with exceptional accuracy. And in the scientific spirit, they and their associated technical reports have been made public for academic peer review and for use by others around the world. Once we've developed these measures, we can now apply 3 principles of measurement. First, we could rigorously confirm the true drivers of financial health. Intuitively, education, employment, or income would be expected to have a large effect on financial well-being, but the far more powerful drivers were actually tied to the fundamental behaviors of actively managing your finances, having good spending and savings habits, and sacrificing for the future. And that meant that our customer interactions could have a meaningful impact on outcomes if they could change behaviors. Second, we industrialized this data-driven measure to monitor and track the financial well-being of millions of customers each month, uncovering hidden insights and opportunities. We discovered improving well-being by 1% correlated to a risk-adjusted revenue increase of 1 to 5 times that amount, and that an equivalent decline actually correlated to a 3 to 6 times effect. Or that customers with low well-being were far more likely to be dissatisfied, or that low well-being was correlated with high digital engagement. Wherever we looked at with this new lens, we found it to be a deeply powerful predictor of current customer behaviors and future commercial outcomes. Finally, we can now prove if we were making a difference. With our ability to track well-being, we could evaluate newly developed solutions for their impact, ensuring that we were fulfilling our promise by driving real outcomes for our customers to better regain their trust. But we needed a disciplined process to develop the right solutions. First, we had to diagnose our customers' challenges by gathering internal and external evidence. We discovered unappreciated complexity in managing the frequency, volatility of timing of income and expenses, or the often confusing choices of how and when to choose, use, and repay debt, or the rainy day issues of anticipating, managing, and recovering from unexpected shocks, or the one-day challenges of when to save, where to invest, or how to draw down. Our financial well-being experts interrogated our data and the global research to deeply understand each issue, and our behavioral scientists helped explain these behaviors and ways to change them, often resulting in insights counterintuitive to the common knowledge in financial services. Second, developing effective solutions required expertise. Behavioral science has not had enough opportunities to test large-scale solutions. We found ourselves at or beyond the boundaries of the known science with multiple theories of change. So in 2017, we established a strategic partnership with Harvard's Sustainability, Transparency, and Accountability Research Lab. And since then, we've expanded our network to include multiple leading universities around the world. We now have the privilege of developing innovative solutions in partnership with leading global experts. This was difficult to make work well, as academics want to publish rigorous research and large organizations need to move quickly. But that hard work has created exceptional value. Finally, and it is worth repeating, we measured our impact. We developed clever ways to run valid experiments while quickly delivering solutions at scale. Because customers always eventually, if not quickly, figure out if your service is making a difference. We also set out 3 clear principles for these innovations. Build beneficent solutions that drive shared outcomes and contribute to the global understanding. Benevolence is important, and every organization needs philanthropic efforts to support the most vulnerable with services that they may not be best equipped to provide. But we challenged ourselves to reimagine more beneficent business models that drove shared outcomes for the business, the customer, and the community. This forced us to think innovatively, but the results again have been extraordinary. Our solutions not only yield better customer outcomes, but the returns on investment are multiples, if not orders of magnitude, better than traditional business cases. And by doing so, we have ensured that these solutions will continue to have ongoing support as critical drivers of commercial and customer success. And finally, in the spirit of our purpose and scientific method, we are sharing our learnings and insights so that others may build on them as well. Our academic partners have and will continue to publish a number of papers that we hope add to the global dialogue. So what are some of the solutions we've delivered? We launched a savings experience that helped 20% of our customers with $0 in savings start saving consistently. We improved transparency for new credit card, not only drove better behaviors, but a 30% reduction in attrition. And we developed Benefits Finder, an unbank-like innovation built in partnership with Harvard's Star Lab that uses the best of our technology to help connect customers with over 250 government benefits. In just a little over a year, we are now approaching 1 million customers, claiming at least $150 million in benefits with dramatic improvements in customer satisfaction, and a deeply meaningful way for us to support our customers during this public health crisis. Our ability to monitor well-being has also enabled us to provide critical government agencies with real-time insights so they can better support their constituents. This has been our journey, guided by the simple belief that if you want better customers, make customers better, and do so in a measured, disciplined, and innovative way. I hope you join us. These organizations and CBA would be glad to hear from you and happy to help you on your journey to better customer and commercial outcomes. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mohammed. That was such an inspiring presentation. I love that example of Benefits Finder. It's like a perfect overlap between artificial intelligence, data, and actually caring for the customers. What a brilliant, brilliant idea. And you're seeing the attrition rates drop by 30%. So it is paying dividends in very real commercial terms. And a great quote there. The 3 principles of trust are authenticity, empathy, and competence. And if you want better customers, make customers better. Fantastic. Amen. So, and with that, I'm afraid that's all we have time for. That's the last presentation on the last day of Sibos Spotlight during Sibos Week. And it's been a real pleasure to have your company here. I just want to give a quick shout out to the wonderful session coordinators from Swift and Sibos, who are Monisha Haldar, Margot Monforti, and Martin Duffy. So thank you and well done for bringing together such a wonderful collection of speakers. My name's Oisín Lunny. Please do feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn, or even better, connect on the Sibos app, and I would love to stay in touch with you. Thanks for joining us for Sibos Spotlight, and enjoy the rest of your Sibos.